The Veldar fleet materialized from hyperspace. Like death itself, 700 warships emerging in perfect formation around what their sensors had identified as an unremarkable terrestrial world. Admiral Crushon flexed his four primary arms, savoring the moment. The planet below glowed a peaceful blue-green, its single moon hanging like a pearl against the void. "Scans confirm, Admiral," his tactical officer hissed through mandibles. That clicked with anticipation. Population, 7.8 billion. Technology level, primitive, no orbital defenses detected. They still use chemical propulsion. Crushon's vertical pupils dilated with pleasure. The Veldar hegemony had conquered 47 star systems in the past decade, each victory easier than the last. This world, Earth according to their databases, would be no different. The inhabitants called themselves humans, bipedal mammals who had barely managed to place a few crude satellites in orbit. They would fall within hours. Begin standard pacification protocol, Crushon commanded, his voice a wet rasp that echoed through the bridge. Eliminate all military installations first. Leave the major population centers intact. We'll need workers for the mining operations. The first wave of Veldar atmospheric fighters screamed toward Earth's surface, their plasma cannons charging. Within minutes, flashes of green fire bloomed across the planet's surface as airbases, naval installations, and defensive positions vanished in superheated clouds. The primitive aircraft that rose to meet them lasted mere seconds against Veldar technology. But something was wrong. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice carried a note of confusion. "I'm detecting unusual seismic activity. Deep core readings are inconsistent with our initial planetary survey." Crushon's attention snapped to the display. The planet's core showed energy patterns that made no sense. Instead of the stable geological activity expected from a natural world, massive structures seemed to be moving deep beneath the surface. "Moving with purpose. Run a deep scan," he ordered. Full spectral analysis. The results made his blood run cold. The planet wasn't just inhabited, it was engineered. Vast mechanical systems ran through its core like arteries, connecting to some kind of central processing matrix, but that was impossible. The humans barely had spaceflight. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the surface," the communications officer announced. "It's on all frequencies. They're broadcasting to the entire fleet." On speakers, a human voice filled the bridge, speaking with calm authority in perfectly pronounced Veldar. "Admiral Crushon of the 4th Conquest Fleet. My name is Commander Marcus Reeves of the Terran Defense Corps. We know why you're here. We know what you've done to 47 other worlds. And we know what you're planning to do to ours." Crushon's spines rattled with surprise. How could these primitives know Veldar language? How did they know about the other conquests? The human continued. "You see our world as just another target. You think we're defenseless because our technology appears primitive. You're wrong. We've been waiting for you, Admiral. We've been preparing for over a century. Impossible." Crushon snarled. "You haven't even achieved interstellar flight. Because we didn't need to leave our world to build the perfect weapon," Reeves replied. "You're sitting right on top of it. What you call a planet is actually the largest artificial construct in this galaxy. Every mountain, every ocean, every continent, it's all part of one massive weapon system. And Admiral, you just flew into its firing range." The seismic readings spiked dramatically. Deep beneath Earth's surface, systems that had slumbered for decades began to wake. Tectonic plates shifted not with geological force, but with mechanical precision. The planet's magnetic field fluctuated, and strange energy readings began emanating from every major landmass. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice cracked, "the planet's gravitational field is changing. It's not natural. Something is actively manipulating the planet's mass distribution." Crushon stared at the readings in growing horror. A weapon the size of a planet? It was beyond comprehension. No species in the known galaxy possessed such technology. The Veldar were the apex predators of this sector, with weapons that could crack moons and fleets that blotted out stars. But as he watched his sensors, Admiral Crushon began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't discovered a primitive world ripe for conquest. They had awakened something that had been sleeping for far too long. The first sign of Earth's true nature came when Crushon's lead destroyer, the The void render simply ceased to exist. "Sir, we've lost contact with Battle Group 7, the communications officer reported, his voice tight with disbelief. They were holding position above the northern continent when the tactical display updated. Where 12 Veldar warships had been moments before, space was empty. No debris, no energy signatures, no distress signals. They had simply vanished as if they had never existed. What destroyed them? Kreshin demanded. Unknown, sir. No weapons fire detected. No gravitational anomalies. The ships just stopped transmitting. Commander Reeves' voice crackled through the comm again. You're wondering what happened to your northern battle group. They're still there, Admiral. Or rather, they're still where spacetime used to be before we folded it. Earth isn't just a weapon, it's a reality manipulation device. Your ships are trapped in a dimensional pocket. Very humane, actually. We could have simply deleted them from existence. Kreshin S for Hearts hammered against his ribcage. Dimensional manipulation technology was theoretical even for the Veldar. The energy requirements alone would be impossible for any single planet to generate. You're bluffing, he transmitted back. No species possesses such technology. 2 more battle groups just entered the northern exclusion zone. Reeves observed calmly. Shall we demonstrate again? Before Kreshin could respond, his sensors registered impossible readings from Earth's surface. The northern continent, the entire landmass was rotating. Not the surface, but the underlying geological structure itself. Massive mechanical systems, each larger than Veldar cities, were rising from beneath the crust. The planet's surface buckled and reformed as titanic machinery emerged. A beam of pure white energy lanced out from what had once been called North America. It struck battle groups 3 and 9 with surgical precision. The Veldar ships didn't explode, they simply folded in on themselves, compressed into impossibly dense points of matter. Before winking out of existence, molecular compression cannons, Reeves explained conversationally. We compress your ships down to the size of marbles, then fire them into the nearest star. Very clean, very permanent. Panic spread through the Veldar fleet. Admiral Kreshin watched his formation dissolve as ship captains began backing away from Earth's immediate vicinity. These were veteran warriors who had faced extinction before, but never against an enemy that could casually violate the laws of physics. All ships, maintain formation. Kreshin roared into his communicator. Concentrated bombardment on the source of those weapons. The Veldar fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons that could melt continents focused their fury on the emerging weapon systems. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed slammed into Earth's surface. Quantum disruptors designed to tear apart molecular bonds flooded the atmosphere with deadly radiation. The attack struck Earth's atmosphere and simply stopped. An invisible barrier absorbed every shot, every missile, every beam of energy. The weapon's fire hung in space for a moment like frozen lightning before being harmlessly dispersed. Planetary defense shields, Reeves continued, his voice still maddeningly calm. Generated by the planet's core itself, you'd need to destroy the entire world to penetrate them. And frankly, that's not going to happen. More weapon systems emerged from the planet's surface. What had appeared to be mountain ranges revealed themselves as massive artillery installations. Ocean floors rose, exposing underwater cities that bristled with defensive turrets. The planet's moon shifted in its orbit, and Kreshin realized with growing horror that it too was artificial, a massive weapons platform, disguised as a natural satellite. How, he transmitted, his voice barely a whisper. We've had visitors before, Admiral, Reeves replied. Thousands of years ago, another species tried to conquer Earth. They were far more advanced than you. They had weapons that could crack planets, ships that bent space itself, technology that made your entire civilization look like children playing with sticks. The human paused, letting that sink in. We killed them all, every last one. But we learned from them. We took their technology, improved it, and built it into our world itself. Earth isn't our home, Admiral. Earth is us. Every human mind is connected to the planetary consciousness. We don't live on a world, we are the world. Kreshin's worst fears crystallized. They hadn't encountered a primitive species. They had stumbled into the territory of something that had already proven it could destroy. Civilizations far more advanced than the Veldar, and now it was fully awake. Admiral Krushin's remaining 400 ships regrouped at the edge of the system. But even there they weren't safe. Earth had begun to move, not orbiting, moving with purpose. The entire planet had broken free from its solar trajectory and was now accelerating toward the Veldar fleet under its own power. Its moon followed like a loyal hound, both celestial bodies leaving trails of distorted spacetime in their wake. Sir, the planet is approaching at 0.03 light speed and accelerating, the sensor operator reported, his voice cracking with strain. At this rate, it will reach our position in 14 minutes. Krushin's tactical mind raced. A planet-sized object moving at relativistic speeds wasn't just a weapon, it was a system killer. If it impacted anything at that velocity, the explosion would sterilize everything within several light hours. All ships, emergency hyperspace jump to rally point 7, he commanded. Full retreat, maximum speed. But as the fleet began spooling up their hyperdrive systems, space itself seemed to thicken around them. The familiar blue glow of hyperspace windows flickered and died. Admiral, the chief engineer's voice came through the comm, thick with panic. We can't achieve hyperspace translation. Something is interfering with our drive systems. Commander, Reeves' voice filled the bridge again. Spacetime interdiction field, Admiral. Effective range, 3 light hours. You're not leaving this system until we decide you can leave. The planet continued its inexorable approach. As it drew closer, more of its true nature became visible. The surface was covered in geometric patterns that pulsed with energy. Vast mechanical arms extended from the poles, bristling with weapons that defied classification. The planet's atmosphere itself had become weaponized aurora-like phenomena, danced across its surface, each one a different type of exotic energy discharge. We have to destroy it, Krushin muttered, then louder, all ships. Convergence bombardment on the planet's core, everything we have. The Veldar fleet concentrated their fire into a single, devastating barrage. Planet crackers designed to shatter worlds, quantum torpedoes that could destabilize atomic bonds, gravitational weapons that could create miniature black holes, every piece of destructive technology. In their arsenal focused on Earth's approaching bulk, the attacks struck the planetary shields and were absorbed without effect. But this time, Earth responded differently. The planet's surface began to open like a flower. Massive sections of crust folded back, revealing the intricate machinery beneath. What the Veldar saw defied comprehension. Mechanical structures the size of continents, power cores that burned with the fury of stars, and at the center of it all, a spherical chamber containing what looked like a miniature galaxy, billions of stars spinning in perfect formation. Behold the heart of Terra, Reeves announced. Every star you see in that core is a compressed solar system. We've been collecting them for millennia. Each one powers a different weapons system. You wanted to see our true capabilities, Admiral? Now you know why 47 species have tried to conquer us. Over the past million years, the heart of Terra pulsed, and 47 different types of exotic energy erupted from Earth's surface. Each beam was different, some warped space, others manipulated time, and several appeared to attack the very concept of existence itself. The weapons reached out across space with impossible range and precision. Krushin watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Ships didn't just explode, they experienced fates far worse. Some were caught in temporal loops, replaying their destruction forever. Others were phase-shifted into parallel dimensions where the laws of physics worked differently, causing them to tear themselves apart. Several ships simply forgot how to exist and peacefully faded from reality. Fall back. All ships fall back, he screamed, but there was nowhere to retreat. The interdiction field held them fast while Earth approached like a cosmic executioner. His flagship shuddered as an energy beam glanced off their shields. For a moment, Krushin experienced something impossible. He felt every death that had ever occurred on his ship. The weight of centuries of violence crashed down on his consciousness, and he understood that this was just a taste of what Earth could do. Please, he transmitted to the human commander, we'll withdraw. We'll never return. Just let us go. I'm afraid it's too late for that, Admiral, Reeves replied. You see, we've learned something important over the millennia. If you let a predator species escape, they just come back with bigger claws. The Veldar hegemony has to end here. Not just your fleet, your entire civilization. Earth's moon suddenly accelerated ahead of the planet, revealing its true nature as a massive siege weapon. Its surface opened to expose a single, planet-sized cannon that began charging with the light of a dying star. "That's our Starkiller," Reeves explained. "We're about to demonstrate it on your home system. Don't worry, it's quite fast. Your people won't suffer long." Krushin realized with crystal clarity that they had doomed not just themselves, but their entire species. They had awakened something that wouldn't stop until every trace of Veldar civilization was erased from the galaxy. Admiral Krushin made the hardest decision of his military career. If the Veldar were going to die, they would die fighting. All ships ramming speed, he transmitted across the fleet. "Target the heart of Terra. If we can't defeat this thing, we'll at least damage it enough to save our home world." 300 ships responded to his call, their captains understanding that this was a suicide run. But the Veldar had not conquered 47 systems by accepting defeat. They turned their vessels toward Earth's exposed core and pushed their engines beyond safe parameters. Earth responded with surgical precision. The atmosphere itself became a weapon. Exotic particles formed into solid barriers that caught ships like insects in amber. Gravity wells opened and closed like snapping jaws, crushing vessels into compact spheres of metal and flesh. Lightning that burned with the heat of solar flares arced between ships, turning their hulls into molten slag. But the Veldar kept coming. The dreadnought Universe's End managed to penetrate within 1,000 kilometers of the planetary surface before a temporal weapon caught it in a time dilation field. From inside the ship, its crew experienced their death dive for what felt like hours, watching their hull slowly disintegrate under the planet's assault. From outside, they simply hung motionless in space as time crawled to a halt around them. The carrier void's embrace released its entire complement of fighters, 10,000 small craft that swarmed toward Earth like angry insects. The planet's defense systems responded by turning the space around each fighter into a different environment. Some found themselves flying through acid rain that dissolved their ships. Others discovered that their cockpits had become vacuum chambers, while their engines now existed in a zone of crushing gravity. The most unfortunate pilots found their fighters transformed into biological creatures that immediately began eating them from the inside out. Through it all, Commander Reeves maintained his calm commentary. "Impressive dedication, Admiral. Most species surrender long before this point, but you're only making things worse for yourselves." Krushin's flagship, the Final Authority, pushed through the carnage toward Earth's core. His shields failed as energy beams too exotic to classify tore through his defensive systems. His crew died at their stations as reality itself became hostile to their existence. But still the ship flew on, its admiral determined to at least make the humans bleed for their victory. "Sir," his dying sensor operator gasped, "I'm detecting something in the planetary core. There are other ships in there, thousands of them." Krushin focused his remaining sensors on the heart of Terra. Suspended in the miniature galaxy at Earth's center were the preserved remains of every fleet that had ever challenged the planet, ship designs from dozens of different species, all perfectly maintained in temporal stasis fields, a museum of conquest and failure. "Welcome to the collection, Admiral," Reeves said softly. "Every species that's tried to conquer Earth has contributed to our capabilities. Your ships will join them soon. Your technology will be analyzed, improved, and incorporated into our defenses. Your people's knowledge will become part of our arsenal." The Final Authority broke through the planet's outer defenses and began its final dive toward the core. Krushin could see individual humans, now billions of them, standing on the planet's surface, all looking up at his ship with the same calm expression. They weren't afraid. They weren't even angry. They were simply waiting. "Do you want to know the truth about humanity, Admiral?" Reeves asked as the flagship plummeted toward certain destruction. "We're not originally from this planet. We're refugees, the last survivors of a species that was hunted to near extinction by predator races. Just like yours. We built Earth as our sanctuary, our fortress, our weapon of last resort." The ship shuddered as defensive systems tore through its hull. Crescent felt his own life ebbing away. As exotic energies flooded the bridge, every species you've conquered, every world you've enslaved, every innocent you've killed, we've been watching. We've been learning. We've been preparing. Earth isn't just a weapon, Admiral. It's justice itself. The final authority struck Earth's innermost defensive barrier and was instantly vaporized. Its atoms scattered across the planet's surface to become part of the growing weapons system. Admiral Crescent died knowing that his entire civilization had been judged and found wanting by something far older and more terrible than anything they had ever imagined. In the space around Earth, the last few Veldar ships continued their futile assault, but the outcome was already decided. Earth had awakened fully now, and its hunger for justice was about to be satisfied. The Star Killer weapon finished charging, its barrel aimed directly at the heart of Veldar space. 47 systems would burn as payment for 47 conquered worlds. The predators were about to become prey, and in the depths of space, other species who had heard the Veldar's death screams began to reconsider their own expansionist policies. Earth had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy for millennia. Some worlds were not meant to be conquered. Earth's moon fired. The Star Killer weapon discharged a beam of concentrated stellar matter, the compressed heart of a dying star, across interstellar space at faster-than-light speeds. The beam punched through hyperspace itself, creating a tunnel of pure destruction that reached across the galaxy to the Veldar homeworld of Kethmaran. The Veldar home system died in 17 seconds. Their star, a stable red giant that had burned for billions of years, was transformed into a chain reaction supernova. 8 planets, 17 moons, and 43 orbital stations were consumed in an expanding wave of stellar fire. The 6 billion Veldar civilians, who had been living their ordinary lives moments before, became part of a new nebula that would burn for 1,000 years. But Earth wasn't finished. The planet began deploying its full arsenal. Hidden weapons systems that had been dormant for millennia emerged from every continent. The seafloors opened to reveal submarine launch platforms that fired continent-sized projectiles. Through dimensional rifts, the polar ice caps melted away to expose massive particle accelerators that wrapped around the planet's circumference. Phase 2 initiation, Commander Reeves announced to the dying Veldar fleet. Now we deal with the rest of your empire. Space around Earth erupted with activity. Thousands of structures that had been disguised as asteroids in the outer system suddenly came online, revealing themselves as automated weapon platforms. Each one began firing on the remaining Veldar colonies that existed throughout this sector of the galaxy. Admiral Crescent's communications officer, the last surviving member of his bridge crew, managed one final transmission to their command structure, emergency code Black. The humans, they're not just defending, they're sterilizing everything. Every Veldar world, every outpost, the transmission cut off as the final authority finally succumbed to Earth's assault. Its hull breached by weapons that shouldn't have been able to exist. But the warning had reached other Veldar fleets. 3 full battle groups that had been conquering systems in distant sectors immediately diverted course toward Earth. The Infinite Vengeance fleet under Admiral Vorthges included 50 planet crackers and the experimental weapon known as the Reality Bomb, a device that could theoretically unmake the fundamental forces holding matter together. They arrived to find a battlefield that defied comprehension. Earth was no longer alone. The planet had somehow moved 17 moons into orbit around itself, each one a different captured celestial body from across the galaxy. Every moon bristled with weapons, and the space between them was filled with a defensive network that warped physics itself. By the void, Admiral Vorthges whispered as his sensors tried to process what they were seeing. It's built itself an entire fortress system, but the most terrifying sight was Earth itself. The planet had begun to transform. Its surface was no longer recognizable as a world. It had become a massive mechanical structure, covered in weapon emplacements. Continents moved like puzzle pieces, rearranging themselves to optimize firing solutions. The atmosphere had been replaced with a controlled plasma field that could be shaped into weapons or barriers at will. Incoming transmission. His communications officer reported. Commander Reeves' voice came through, but it sounded different now, layered with harmonics. As if millions of voices were speaking in unison. Admiral Vorthges, we've been expecting you. Your reality bomb is impressive technology. Unfortunately for you, we've had similar weapons for over 50,000 years. The battle that followed could only be described as a cosmic horror show. The Veldar fleet opened with everything they had. The reality bomb fired its payload, a weapon designed to unravel the quantum foam that held spacetime together. Where it struck, fundamental forces simply stopped working. Gravity reversed, electromagnetism failed, and the strong nuclear force holding atoms together began to unwind. Earth's response was to fire a causality cannon. The weapon didn't just destroy the reality bomb, it retroactively prevented it from ever having been built. The weapon and its effects simply ceased to exist, erased from the timeline itself. The Veldar scientists who had designed it forgot they had ever had the idea. The materials used in its construction were suddenly doing something else entirely. Planet crackers fired their gravitational weapons, creating artificial black holes designed to tear Earth apart from within. Earth responded by turning its entire mass into a gravitational weapon, creating tidal forces that crushed the incoming black holes like soap bubbles. Quantum disruptors attempted to destabilize the molecular bonds holding the planet together. Earth countered by existing in 17 different dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible for the weapons to target all of its aspects at once. The Veldar fleet died ship by ship, each vessel falling to weapons that operated on principles their science couldn't even understand. The carrier Death's Garden was caught in a probability storm that forced it to experience every possible way it could be destroyed simultaneously. The dreadnought Void's crown was attacked by weapons that targeted concepts rather than matter. Its crew forgot how to operate their ship, then forgot they were in space, then forgot they existed at all. But the Veldar kept fighting. It was what they were bred for, what their entire culture was built around. Even as their reality crumbled around them, they continued to fire their weapons and attempt ramming attacks against the planet fortress. Admiral Vorthges managed to get his flagship within visual range of Earth's surface before a temporal weapon caught him in a time loop. He would spend the next several subjective years experiencing the same 30 seconds of his ship's destruction over and over again, each time hoping that this iteration would somehow be different. That it never was. When the battle ended, space around Earth was empty except for the slowly expanding clouds of dust that had once been the pride of the Veldar military. Earth hung in the void like a malevolent god, its weapons systems still active, still searching for targets. The Veldar hegemony, which had terrorized this sector of the galaxy for over a century, had ceased to exist. Every world, every ship, every trace of their civilization had been methodically erased, and Earth was just getting started. The news of the Veldar annihilation spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major civilization knew that something on the edge of the Orion Arm had just demonstrated the ability to destroy an entire interstellar empire in less than an hour. The response was swift and unanimous. Earth had to be destroyed before it could threaten anyone else. The Corvani synthesis, a collective of machine intelligences that had been neutral in galactic politics for millennia, suddenly activated their entire war fleet. The ethereal dominion, beings of pure energy who rarely interacted with physical species, manifested their entire military force into the material realm. The hive clusters of Andromeda, who had never before left their home galaxy, opened transit portals and began pouring through. 17 different species, many of whom had been enemies for centuries, formed an unprecedented alliance with a single goal: the complete annihilation of Earth and everything connected to it. Commander Marcus Reeves stood in the heart of Terra. His consciousness expanded to encompass the entire planet. Through billions of human minds linked into the planetary network, he could see the enormous fleet assembling at the edge of the solar system. Nearly 10,000 ships, representing the combined military might of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. They're scared, observed Commander Elena Vasquez, her thoughts flowing through the collective consciousness. Good, they should be. This is different, warned Dr. Amit Patel, his scientific mind analyzing the approaching threat. The Veldar were just predators. These species have technologies we've never encountered. Some of them are older than our planet. Through the planetary consciousness, every human on Earth could feel the approaching storm. This would be the battle that determined whether humanity survived or joined the Museum of Extinct Species. Floating in Earth's core, the combined galactic fleet entered the outer solar system with weapons already charging. They didn't attempt communication or negotiation. Earth's response to the Veldar had made it clear that humanity wasn't interested in coexistence. The Corvani synthesis led the assault, with their logic destroyers weapons that attacked the mathematical principles underlying physical laws, where their beams struck, 2 + 2 stopped equaling 4, and matter forgot how to hold itself together according to conventional physics. The ethereal dominion fired pure thought forms given destructive potential ideas so toxic that they could kill by being comprehended, mental viruses that could corrupt any conscious entity that perceived them. The hive clusters brought their reality engines machines that could literally rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas, turning space into hostile environments where the normal rules of existence didn't apply. Earth's response was to reveal capabilities that went beyond anything the attackers had anticipated. The planet suddenly multiplied, not through some kind of technology, through sheer force of will. Where there had been one Earth, there were now 7, each one existing in a slightly different dimensional phase. The attacking fleet found themselves facing not just a weapon planet, but an entire weapon system that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. Impossible, transmitted Admiral Cathverian of the Corvani synthesis. Matter cannot simply duplicate itself across dimensional barriers. Commander Reeves' response echoed across all dimensional phases at once. You're thinking too small, Admiral. Earth isn't just matter. Earth is an idea, and ideas can exist in as many realities as necessary. The battle that followed was less a military engagement and more a conflict between different interpretations of what reality should be. The logic destroyers fired at mathematics itself, trying to make the concept of planet invalid. Earth responded by existing in a state where logic was optional, functioning according to principles that predated the development of mathematics by civilizations. The ethereal dominion's thought weapons struck the planetary consciousness and found themselves absorbed into a mental framework so vast and complex that they simply got lost in the sheer scope of human experience. Millions of years of accumulated memory and imagination swallowed the hostile ideas. Like an ocean absorbing raindrops, the reality engines attempted to rewrite the physics of Earth's local space, declaring that such a massive artificial construct couldn't possibly exist. Earth's response was to demonstrate that it existed anyway, because the collective will of 8 billion human minds insisted that it did. But the Galactic Alliance had come prepared for a long siege. They began implementing their ultimate strategy: temporal bombardment. Instead of trying to destroy Earth in the present, they would attack it throughout history, preventing it from ever having been built. Chronological assault fleets began appearing throughout Earth's timeline. Ships materialized above ancient Babylon, above medieval Europe, above the primitive settlements of early humanity. They came to sterilize the species before it could develop the technology to threaten the galaxy. This was where Earth revealed its final defensive measure: time travel. Commander Reeves' voice carried a note of amusement as it echoed through the local time stream. You really think we hadn't considered that possibility? Every moment in Earth's history suddenly contained the same defensive capabilities as the present. Roman legions found themselves equipped with quantum weapons. Medieval knights discovered they could manipulate spacetime. Paleolithic humans began building starships from stones and animal bones that somehow functioned as advanced technology. The temporal assault fleet found themselves fighting not just future Earth, but every version of humanity that had ever existed, all of them equally advanced and equally determined to survive. The galaxy had made a crucial error. They had assumed that Earth's weapons were technological, when in reality they were manifestational. Humanity had learned to make reality conform to their will through sheer bloody-minded persistence. And now every human who had ever lived was awake, aware, and very, very angry. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a galactic surrender. Admiral Cathverian of the Corvani synthesis was the first to break. His machine logic, designed to process any possible scenario, simply could not comprehend a species that had weaponized existence itself. When Roman centurions began firing antimatter javelins at his fleet while singing battle hymns in Latin, his computational matrices shut down to prevent permanent damage. We yield. He transmitted across all frequencies. We cannot fight an enemy that exists in a state of perpetual impossibility. The ethereal dominion's response was similar, though expressed in harmonic frequencies that roughly translated to stunned disbelief. Their greatest philosophers, beings who had spent millions of years contemplating the nature of reality, found their understanding completely invalidated by a species that had simply decided the universe worked differently. The hive clusters retreated. So quickly they left dimensional rifts in their wake, their collective consciousness traumatized by contact with human determination. They returned to Andromeda with warnings about the reality deviance in the Milky Way. Commander Reeves stood in the heart of Terra, watching through 10,000 different viewpoints as the galactic fleet limped away from Earth's solar system. Around him, the planetary consciousness hummed with satisfaction, not bloodthirsty joy, but the quiet contentment of a job well done. Status report, he requested. Galactic threat level reduced to 0, reported Dr. Patel, his consciousness interfacing with the planet's analysis systems. 17 major civilizations have implemented non-aggression protocols regarding human space. The Corvani synthesis has actually requested permission to study our impossible mathematics from a safe distance. Casualties? Asked Commander Vasquez. None, came the surprising response from Medical Officer Chen Weiming. The temporal defenses prevented any meaningful damage to our historical development. A few million humans across various time periods briefly became aware they were in a cosmic war, but their memories have been adjusted for psychological stability. Through the planetary network, Reeves could feel the mood of humanity shifting from battle readiness to something more complex. They had won, completely and decisively. The galaxy now knew that Earth was untouchable. But victory brought its own challenges. What now? Asked Elena, voicing the question that billions of humans were pondering. Reeves considered this for millennia. Humanity had been focused on defense, on survival, on preparation for the day when predator species would find them. That day had come and gone. Earth had proven itself capable of defending not just against conquest, but against entire galactic civilizations working in concert. Now we decide what kind of species we want to be, he answered. The debate that followed involved every human consciousness on Earth and lasted approximately 17 seconds in real time, though subjectively it felt like years of discussion. Across the planetary network, options were proposed, analyzed, and refined with the collective intelligence of 8 billion minds working in harmony. They could become conquerors themselves, spreading across the galaxy and imposing human will on other species. Earth's capabilities made such expansion trivially easy. They could become isolationists, sealing Earth off from the rest of the universe and focusing on internal development. Or they could become something else entirely. Guardians, suggested Dr. Sarah Okafor, her consciousness speaking from the African continent that now doubled as a massive sensor ray. We've proven we can defend ourselves, but what about species that can't? The idea resonated through the planetary consciousness. For every Veldar that had terrorized weaker civilizations, there were dozens of peaceful species that had fallen, victim to galactic predators. Earth had the power to ensure that never happened again. The Galactic Protection Protocol, Reeves announced, the decision crystallizing across billions of linked minds. Any species that threatens a peaceful civilization will find themselves face to face with Earth's defensive capabilities within hours. The new policy was transmitted across the galaxy in 17 different languages and 12 different forms of consciousness communication. The message was simple: Earth would tolerate diversity, celebrate peace, and absolutely annihilate anyone who tried to impose conquest through force. The response was immediate and varied. Peaceful species that had been hiding in the galactic rim for centuries began emerging from their sanctuaries, the scholarly archives of Vega, who had been maintaining libraries in secret for millennia, transmitted the locations of their hidden knowledge stores. The artists collective of the Spiral Nebulae began broadcasting their work again after centuries of silence, but more importantly, the predator species began changing their behavior. The news that Earth had effortlessly destroyed entire civilizations traveled faster than any ship. Conquest fleets found themselves recalled to their home systems. Slave markets closed as their operators realized that humanity might consider slavery a form of aggression worthy of planetary annihilation. Some species tried to test the new order. The Ravager clans, a collection of nomadic pirates who had been raiding the outer systems, decided that humanity was bluffing. They were wrong. Earth didn't even need to move this time. A single focus transmission created a brief anomaly in the space around the Ravager fleet. When the distortion cleared, their ships had been transformed into medical vessels, their weapons replaced with humanitarian supplies, and their crews suddenly possessed an overwhelming compulsion to provide aid to refugee populations. The message was clear: Earth preferred rehabilitation to annihilation. But both options remained on the table. Years passed. The galaxy settled into a new equilibrium, one where peaceful development flourished under Earth's distant but absolute protection. Trade networks expanded, scientific collaboration increased, and for the first time in galactic history, wars of conquest became extinct. Commander Reeves, now existing as a permanent part of Earth's consciousness, watched it all with satisfaction. Through the planetary network, he could feel the contentment of his species. They had found their purpose not as conquerors or victims, but as the ultimate peacekeepers in a galaxy finally free from the tyranny of the strong. Preying upon the weak. In the heart of Terra, the Museum of Conquered Species served as a constant reminder of what could happen to those who chose violence over cooperation. The preserved ships of 47 different civilizations hung in temporal stasis, a testament to the consequences of believing that might made right. But surrounding that dark museum was something new, a growing collection of gifts from grateful species across the galaxy, art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries from thousands of worlds, all shared freely with the species that had made their existence possible. Earth had started as humanity's last refuge. It had become the galaxy's greatest protector. And in the end, that made all the difference. The planet hung in space, its surface now a beautiful hybrid of natural landscapes and obviously artificial structures. Gardens grew beside weapon emplacements. Cities thrived next to defensive installations. Children played in parks that could become fortresses at a moment's notice. It was a world at peace, but never unarmed. A reminder that sometimes the greatest act of love was the willingness to fight for what you protected. In the depths of space, other threats might someday emerge. Other galaxies might harbor species that would challenge Earth's protection of the innocent. When that day came, humanity would be ready. After all, they had already proven that there was no force in the universe more dangerous than people, who had decided that their home and their neighbors were worth defending. The galaxy had learned to call them guardians, protectors, the final arbiters of justice. Humanity preferred a simpler term. They were just really good neighbors. And the universe was a much safer place because of it.